I do stand-up comedy. I
That's
used
it.
to do a lot of speech training. Started writing comedy for a friend who was writing for TV, and he thought, you write comedy, you speak in public. Why haven't you done stand-up yet? And I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I can do that.
You've done hosting as well.
Yeah,
corporate.
I do a lot of hosting. I've recently, I mean, this past year and a half, I've probably done the most corporates that I've ever done.
Yeah.
Actually, can I tell you a funny corporate story?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was doing a corporate gig for Bank of America Merrill Lynch,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a steering group meeting. It's a meeting of all their big wigs from Asia. They all get together.
Yeah.
It's a 3 days of really hard work, and at the end of it, there's some entertainment.
Yeah.
So I perform in front of just a bunch of corporate bigwigs. But before the show, I'm sure you do the same. You always do your due diligence, like, what can I do? What should I wear? What should I say?
Yeah.
And when I got to content, these guys were saying, like, you know what? I know we're bankers. We're going to be in suits, but we like to have fun. You can talk about whatever you want.
Okay.
And I'm like, really? I can talk about whatever I want. It's like, yeah, whatever you want. So I can talk about sex. So like, you can talk about sex. Talk about drugs. So you can talk about drugs. So can I talk about politics? Like, you can talk about politics as long as you don't go too hardcore on the Chinese, and because they're going to have a lot of people from mainland China there. And I was like, okay. I can talk about, and they're like, honestly, talk about anything. And I was like, okay. And I remember it's like, can I talk about Rurik Jutting? And they're like, do not talk about Rurik Jutting. Probably like, because I forgot that he worked for Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and they're like...
For people who are listening, obviously, around the world, the millions of listeners, he worked for Bank of America, and he murdered some people.
He kidnapped and murdered 2 Indonesian women in Hong Kong. And his defense was, I was on too many drugs. That was his defense.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were like, do not talk about Rurik Jutting. Even at work, we just pretend Rurik Jutting does not exist. We like to remind people that Rurik Jutting left Bank of America before he committed those murders. And it was funny, it's like, that's where they draw the line. It's like, oh, it's sex and drugs and whatever, that's fine. But Rurik Jutting, don't talk about Rurik Jutting.
No way, don't talk about the murderer.
I know. and I'm glad I asked, or else I would have told a Rurik Jutting joke and gotten in a lot of trouble.
I love to get some technical stuff, and often I forget, so let's just do some technical stuff
Sure.
right at the start. Say you're headlining and you've managed to get yourself a longer set, like maybe you're doing 30 minutes,
Sure.
45 minutes. How much material do you prepare?
So I usually prepare, if I'm doing 30-40, I will have 20 minutes prepared.
Yeah.
Ish. I know the 5 I'll begin with. I know the 10 I'll begin with. I know the 5 I'll end with.
Yeah.
The other 5 is sprinkled in between. I try to do a lot of crowd work, especially recently. And then in my I have about 40 minutes that I know I'll at least be doing 5 minutes of. 5 to 15.
Yeah.
So just like, I have the joke about Movember, and when Movember's rolling around, I can throw that in there.
Yep.
There's also, like, you can do crowd work and it'll make you remember some jokes. So, I remember talking to some audience member who worked for Cathay Pacific Entertainment Department.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean entertainment? He's like, we're the guys who put all the movies and the videos on screen. I'm like, oh, you're the guy who censors all of Game of Thrones on Cathay. He's like, yes, that's... So I just remembered that, and I did all these Game of Thrones jokes that I haven't told in a while. But I usually keep about, like, 40-ish in the back of my head that I know I'll be doing at least 5 to 10 of, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
You said you do a lot of crowd work when you're doing a 30 to 45-minute set.
Yeah.
How do you weave crowd work into regular bits?
I think it's... So, firstly, I do a lot of fake crowd work.
Yeah.
Which people have started noticing. People are like, oh, so a lot of your crowd work's fake crowd work. I'm like, it's totally fake crowd work. Because I have planned jokes depending on the response.
Yeah.
I'll just like, how long you guys been dating? If they've been dating a really long time, got a joke for it. If they haven't been dating that long, a joke for it. But because I do that enough, I can go in and out of jokes as long as it's based on a theme. So my first 10 to 15 minutes, I'm almost always talking about relationships.
Yeah.
So I can do crowd work just about relationships, and then just see where that thread takes me, and then go back into the jokes about the relationships. And then so similarly, I have a lot of jokes about race and race relations and politics near the end. So you just like weave in and back out of it.
Yeah, seamless. If it's the same topic.
Whereas someone like Paulo Gata, because he's got so much material, he can crowd work you can begin crowd work at any time and always weave.
This may not be relevant to the rest of the podcast, but Paul Agata was sitting on that chair about 18 months ago.
That's pretty cool.
On my podcast just there.
Awesome. I'm sitting on the same chair as Paul Agata. I'm excited.
Paul Agata, very funny stand-up comedian. Check him out.
Very funny.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Yes. So if you're doing crowd work about relationships and you've got bits about relationships, it fits in very seamlessly.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got if you do crowd work about relationships and then suddenly you jump in with something about aeroplanes, it's so obvious that you're.
And the easiest way I think is I always I try to do crowd work based on people's reactions. Like I'll ask someone a question, they'll answer, I'll come up with a joke, or they'll answer, and someone else reacts based on it, and then I'll do more crowd work based on their reaction.
Yeah.
So if people who are dating, I always ask one guy. I always ask the guy, "How long have you guys been dating?" And if the woman immediately looks at the guy, I'm like, "Well, see, he's testing you. It's a test now. You better pass the test, or you're not going to be dating for that much longer." So, and like anything, you just got to keep doing it. Like I always think of comedy, open mics especially, but comedy's like a gym. You just work different muscles, and then you get funnier because the more you go to the gym, you get stronger. And crowd work's just like leg day. You got to work your legs sometimes to get your legs stronger, just like you have to do crowd work to get better at crowd work.
So you've been doing comedy, I guess, about 2012, about 5 years?
Almost 5 years, yeah.
Okay.
It'll be 5 years in August.
So you've already got quite a lot of material.
Yeah.
How do you go about writing material? Do you have any special? Is there a Garron Chiu technique?
I've gotten lazy with my writing. I used to, so every time I have ideas or punchlines or thoughts, I just jot it down in my notes.
Yeah.
Just jot it down on my phone. And then I used to just sit down and then like try to turn those things into ideas.
Yeah.
I've never found that the most productive way for me.
Yeah.
Also because I've just gotten really lazy at it. So sometimes I will go up to comics, or a few comics go to dinner or go to a bar. We'll bounce ideas off each other and then have it work out. Or more likely, at open mics I try to write on stage now. So I will like go up with an idea, and I'll just talk about that idea and try to think of punchlines on the spot. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. I'll go to the open mic tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if it works, then I was like, oh, that was something there. Then I'll write it down, and then I'll refine it at open mics. And I'll usually take about, if an idea is working well, it'll take me anywhere between a month to
Can you give
3
me an
months
example
before.
of an idea that you've done?
Oh, okay. So the most recent one, and this is probably one of the other comics told me it's the fastest I've gone from open mic to putting on the stage properly, because that took me about maybe 3-4 weeks. I just remember I had this idea about how it's weird that women don't name kids after themselves. Like, men are the only ones who name their kids after themselves. You get a lot of
Benjamin Jr.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of Mary Juniors out there.
Yeah.
And then I thought about it, and then I was like, this has to be something to do with insecurity, right? Because only men care about their legacy that much. But it's not about legacy, it's just insecurity. So my friend told me, he's like, well, you should follow that train of thought. Like, the more a name's passed on, the more insecure they are. So I thought of this joke, so I asked them in the audience.
Is this before you went on stage?
Yeah, so that's before I went on stage. So I got on stage, and I just riffed. I was like, yeah, men are more insecure than women because men are the only ones who name their kids after themselves. Yeah. So, because they have to prove that their penis works. They have to prove that. See, that one's mine, that one's mine. See, it's got my name too. That's how I know that one belongs to me. That one came from me. And I just added so the more you see someone's name passed on by lineage, the more insecure their parents are. So for every name passed down, that person's father has an average penis minus that many inches. So, for example, if you meet a guy named Charles VI, his dad has no penis, just completely no penis.
Was these ideas coming to you on stage?
Yeah, well, so the penis thing did, and then I refined it and I added, which is why I'm naming my son Garron the -3rd, which is obviously a lie because men are very insecure. So.
Yeah. No wonder Henry VIII couldn't get any children.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think I've gotten better at getting an idea to work on stage as much as possible. Because, I think as you do more and more comedy, refining your own jokes, you're better at doing it.
Yeah.
It used to be, when we first got on stage, to get that first type 5, it might take us 6 months, 7 months, 8 months to get those 5 minutes perfect. Mm. But now, I think if you have a joke that really works, it'll only take you a few weeks to perfect that joke.
Right.
So now open mics, and you can do that at regular shows. Mm. So now open mics is just for, all right, let's test new stuff. Let's throw things at the wall. You might tell like a really good joke to begin and end just to warm them up and make yourself look professional. But I now try to spend as much time doing new stuff as possible at open mics.
And do you have any special way of memorizing, or is it just by literally going on stage 2 or 3 times, 3 or 4 times a week? And it just...
2 or 3 times. I used to, and I sometimes still do this if I have a set that's goes really well, like how the joke flows. I would, if I get a good recording, I'll just listen to it for a few times. Just because you can listen to a song for a few times and already know the lyrics, even though you haven't written the lyrics down or anything. So I just try to listen to my set like a song. Yeah. And then just get the beats correct.
And do you need to get rid of old material? Do you sometimes find it's very hard to get rid of a joke?
A little. I mean, I don't necessarily get rid of jokes. Like a joke comes in, another joke goes out in the set, and just keep it in your rotation. I think you can outgrow your jokes. Yeah. Like there are jokes, when I first started.
When you were just such a young man 5 years ago.
Yes. No, like everyone goes through their starter bit phase, right? I mean, when everybody, men especially, when we start doing stand-up comedy, everyone's got their crude masturbation joke or joke about weird porn they've watched, and then you grow out of it. You're like, yeah, it's there, but I'm never gonna tell that joke again. Yeah. Okay. I don't actively be like, I'm never gonna tell that joke again. Unless it's about someone in real life who...
Yeah, of course, because if you're doing crowd work and they say something that...
Yeah, you might
bring that joke up
that
fits with what they were talking about. Okay. If you're doing a longer set, do you find you need to slow down rather than boom, boom, boom?
Slowing down is the best advice you can give any comic. Yeah. Because it's a weird mind... when you start, when you have 7 minutes... Everybody says tight as possible, laughs per minute. How many laughs can you get in a single minute?
Boom,
and you
boom,
try
boom,
to pack
boom,
everything in. Yeah, you try to get the beats. But once you get a longer set, first of all, you don't need someone to laugh all the time. Because if you're doing 30 minutes, they'll be tired if they're laughing every 10, 15 seconds.
If you did a really good 5 minutes and they've been laughing for 5 minutes, they're gonna just stop laughing.
So you can really slow yourself down, build anticipation. What I like to do is at least do 5 really tight minutes off the top. And then you've proven you're funny. Now that you've proven you're funny, they want to listen to what you have to say. So you slow way down. I even add extra details to my jokes that have that aren't funny but build color to the joke just because they like it. Every now and then, everybody does if you want to slow down but you don't, because we're naturally trying to go fast and chase the next laugh. If you want to force yourself to slow down, just have a drink on stage.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's another local comic, Ryan Hynek. That's what he does. Yeah, he's the best at. Which, by the way, you also have to practice because opening a bottle of water while holding a microphone in one hand takes
not easy.
Not easy. Not easy. Like you see people do it, and you're like, oh, that looks natural. And the first time you do it, you're just fumbling about.
Yes.
So I usually have some sort of alcoholic beverage or.
You always look very confident on stage.
Yes.
Is that just for show, or are you naturally confident on stage? I'm
pretty naturally confident. I've never really gotten stage fright my entire life. So I was always good at performing in front of class or being in plays or performing music in front of class. There's some moments you get nervous. Everybody gets nervous. Yeah. I get nervous, but nervous is a good I don't get stage fright. I'm not afraid. Once I get on stage. And I'm on a roll. I'm like, this.
Say it's a big show. Say it was your first big corporate show, and you're going to go on stage. You're going to be a bit nervous, right?
Yeah, you're going to be.
So what would you do to deal with your nerves?
So I have a few things. So this is when I was in, when I did speech and debate. So
exactly.
I did it in college, and I trained. I coached a little bit, and there are a few tips to relax. One, make yourself as light as possible, so that I try not to eat that close before a performance. Anything out from my pockets that I don't need, you try to empty them. Just try to make yourself as light as possible. 2, a lot of deep breathing. And that I sometimes, if I know I'm going to be nervous, if it's competition or it's a very high profile set, I might start doing deep breathing exercises an hour before the set, just to really calm yourself down. And the last one is stretch, just a lot of stretching. Yeah. You'll be surprised how not nervous you get when you stretch. And the other part of that confidence is... this might sound natural, but nobody really remembers to do this, and it took me a while to actively remember to do this. Smiling on stage makes you seem so much more confident. Yeah. Smiling on stage really does.
There you go. Yeah. Waiting for the room. So there you were for this Bank of America, and you checked what you can talk about. Yeah. And you do a bit of research, you do your background checking, and then maybe you try and write some material for that room or for the new country you're in. How do you remember that new stuff that you're only going to use once or twice?
I try to make those short. I try to do those at the beginning. I don't like to sprinkle them through. Mostly because I noticed that, especially for countries, if you're performing in front of a comedy audience, a comedy watching audience, what you think you're writing for that country, which is the first time, is what they've seen a million times. Because I've noticed like there's so many pros, from Paul Agata, Gina Yeshere, to like the super pros, like when Bill Burr comes over, they all seem to do jokes about, we have escalators that go to bars, we have McDonald's that deliver.
Yes.
And sometimes they have the really smart takes on it, and that's when you really laugh. But a lot of the times you're like, oh yeah, I've heard another comedian do that, because it's the first thing you think of when you move to a country.
In the 1990s, they had a comedy club called the One Night Stand in Singapore, and they used to bring in 3 comedians once a month from overseas. Every single comedian made a joke about Orchard Shopping Centre.
Oh, 4 floors of horse. Yeah, every single one does in Singapore. Yep.
See, and that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I heard it, and they're still the visiting comments.
And that's why when...
You must be on their package when they get here. By the way, this shopping centre is known as the 4th floor. It's not even known as that. The locals don't call it that.
I know. And it's just like, it's also too easy. I mean, it sounds funny, it rhymes. So if I'm writing local stuff, I try to write about things that actually happened to me.
Yeah. Because
that's easier to remember, because it happened to me that day. So I remember, when I was in Malaysia, like, I'm Chinese, but I look Chinese, but it's when I'm in Malaysia, people can obviously spot that I'm a tourist.
Yeah.
Especially, I have my girlfriend there who's Hong Kong, but she's Israeli British. But I just remember...
Oh, she sat in this chair as well.
Oh, yes, she did. She said she was...
Cassie Thomas.
Cassie Thomas, look her up. She's a very funny performer. But I just remember when I was in Malaysia, they have non-metered cabs and metered cabs. Okay. So non-metered cabs, you just negotiate the price because they don't have the meter. And then I was leaving a museum, and I was getting into the cab. As I got into the cab driver takes off his hat and puts it over the meter, and he says, "I'm a non-metered cab. How much are you negotiating?" I'm like, I just saw you do that. So, like, I'm not blind. And I told that story on stage, and I got a big laugh.
Yeah. If you go to different countries, do you find there's different audience reactions, different cultures around Southeast Asia?
Not so much Southeast Asia, because Southeast Asia, for the most part...
By the way, that wasn't Garron going to the toilet there. That was me pouring more water into his cup.
I did go to the toilet, but you couldn't hear it. No, I found, like, so Asia, at the end of the day, so all the biggest scenes...
Yeah.
That would be Hong Kong, Malaysia, Shanghai, Singapore. You're still performing to a mostly expat audience. Yeah. Malaysia, more of an exception. So Malaysia, Philippines... and many parts of Singapore, one of the few big scenes in Asia where the locals speak English. But you're still performing in front of expats. Performing in front of locals is very cool. They kind of they like their dirty stuff more. They're more willing to have fun because they're tired. They want to have fun. Whereas like if someone's a lot of the times if you're performing for a richer crowd, crowd who has more money because the ticket price is expensive. Yeah. There's more pressure and they're more holding within themselves because they're like, oh, I could have watched a band, or I could have gone to another show, or I could have gone to a fancy bar. So I think more middle class crowds are more appreciative. Chinese crowds, the local Chinese crowds, it's a little weirder. And I've heard the same for local Japanese crowds and local Indian crowds, where they like to applaud more than they like to have audio laughter. Yeah, I mean, I've done Cantonese shows, and there's a big punchline, and then you'll just hear... And I was like, wait, I like it, but that's not the sound I'm used to.
Yeah. Because you're bilingual, yes?
Yes, although I don't perform in Cantonese that often. I do it sometimes.
Yeah.
And then the weirdest thing is, in the U.S. now, I've been to San Francisco twice in the last year. San Francisco especially, but parts of New York, they've gotten really politically correct.
Oh.
So there's and also there's an overcorrection where there are some rooms the comic who's extremely unpolitically correct gets the biggest laughs because people are flipping back. So it's kind of the polarization of comedy, and I remember because I have the closer I do, it's the first part of the joke's making fun of white people, second part of the joke's making fun of Chinese people.
Yes.
Second part's the funniest part.
Yeah.
The first part, last time, so 2 shows I did in New York, 1 show I did in San Francisco. The part where I make fun of white people gets a huge laugh.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the joke I have about Chinese people, they suddenly go, oh. And I was like, you guys realize I'm Chinese, right?
Yeah.
I'm not even like American Chinese. I mean, I'm American Chinese, but I'm Chinese who lives in Asia.
They're very politically correct, huh?
Yeah.
Is if you do accent in Cantonese, all those tones.
Yes.
This shows how clueless I am. Does sarcasm work when you've got tones to deal with?
Sarcasm works.
It does.
Sarcasm works. Because in Chinese, sarcasm would more be about pacing.
Okay. I've always wondered about singers. Yeah. How do singers sing tunes in Cantonese with all the different tones? Are they saying different words?
You can.
This is totally off topic. This is totally off topic.
I know. No, you can sing. Not easily though. But you can sing because like there are some words that you will make it sound a little different, but based on context of that sentence, you know what that word is.
Yeah. All right. Good. We got some technical stuff out of the way. Excellent.
Oh, although can I mention one thing that I didn't realize until I started doing comedy in Cantonese. Cantonese, because every word is a single syllable, so it's a much faster language, and you even hear it when you hear people on the street talking in Hong Kong. They're speaking very quickly, and I didn't realize how much quicker I speak in Cantonese than I do in English. Because the first time I did, I was supposed to do like a 6 or 7 minute set, and I didn't have time to write it, so I'm just gonna do the English set I've been doing recently, and then translate it. One joke doesn't work, so I have another joke in Chinese I'll put in. Yeah, adds about right. Did well. I got off stage, and Vivek Mahbubani, one of the most famous comics in Hong Kong, he's
been on that chair too.
Awesome. I feel like I'm the last person who's been on this chair now.
No.
No,
hardly any stand-up comedians have been on this chair. Mainly jugglers and acrobats.
Okay.
So
I got off stage, and I thought I was really happy with myself, and Vivek's like, you went 4 minutes. I gave you 7. I was like, what? Because I didn't realize like you speak so much faster, so you can't translate things directly and expect it to take the same amount of time.
That's interesting. I never knew that. I love it. I love these specific tips. No, who would know that apart from a Cantonese stand-up comedian who's done English comedy first?
And it's weird, like I didn't know that as a guy who speaks Cantonese until I did it.
Okay, we got some technical stuff. Brilliant. Let's talk about your early life.
Sure.
You born in Los Angeles?
Yes, I was born in LA. I moved here when I was when I was 4. So 1992. I have a theory about why that happened. I know what actually happened, and I have a theory about why it also happened. Well, so my granddad was falling ill. He lived in Hong Kong, and my mom wanted to move back to take care of him.
Yeah.
And also, my family owns a production company and a factory in China, and they offered my dad a job there to work his operations. So that's the official reason why we moved.
Yeah.
The unofficial reason, my theory is, my dad was a staunch Republican. He worked.
Oh, it was the Clinton years.
Well, it was before that. So he worked for Reagan for 8 years.
All right.
And Bush Sr. for 4 years. And I'm pretty sure he said, and granted I was only 4 at the time, so my recollection might not be that strong, but I distinctly remember him saying, if Clinton wins, we're moving to Hong Kong. And he did, and we moved. And I don't have the heart to tell it, because I'm a lifelong Democrat, and I don't have the heart to tell my dad, like, you could have done anything under Clinton and made so much money. Everybody was making money. They lost it all after, the bubble burst, but, before that, everybody was making money. So,
you're in Hong Kong until you're about 17?
Yeah, so I was here from 92 till about 2006, so from 4 years old to, right before I turned 18, and then
So how come your English is so good?
You
had all your childhood in Hong Kong.
Well, I was always in international school.
Okay.
Plus, I have a really big family in Hong Kong. They mostly speak English.
Okay.
But I think it's mostly TV. I'm just obsessed with TV. I'm obsessed with American TV since I was young. I watch so much TV.
All right.
And I think that really helps. I think, because for a while, for grade school and high school, I went to a British high school. Most of my friends, if they're not from Hong Kong, they're British.
No. So of course you're going to speak.
All my teachers are British. So I basically had Hong Kong, local Hong Kong television.
So in fact, the question is, how come you managed to speak Cantonese so well? In fact,
yeah, that was TV too, actually.
Okay.
But yeah, so I actually had growing up, I had a slight British accent, but I think enough TV got rid of that. Yeah.
Okay, so you go to what's this say? Boston.
Yeah, I moved to Boston
University.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I lived there for another year and a bit after that as well.
And you were very much into debating and public speaking?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I was a debater in high school, and then in college I got into the debate team.
Team of the Year, 2009, 2010.
Wow, you did your research.
13th.
13th place, yes.
2006, 2078th place. What happened that year?
No. So as me and my partner as a team, we were 13th.
Okay.
Me as an individual, I'm like top 48 or whatever it was.
Okay.
He was a much better debater than I am.
Speaker of the Year. Oh, wow. What's that? 74th. Novice of the Year. 2006. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Actually, what I'm most proud of the year after I left, I coached a bit. Boston University won the whole thing. And
wow.
We were, and before that, it was you only won if you're from an Ivy League school, you're from MIT, or you're from Stanford. So. Boston University being the first non-Ivy, non-Stanford, non-MIT to win the trophy was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, after university, did you come back to Hong Kong to get your first proper job in inverted commas?
No. So I was in Boston for a year, and it was a little rough because it was just after the financial crisis. So
Okay.
it was really hard getting jobs. A lot of people.
2007.
The 2008 crash. So the
2008
reverbs, we didn't properly recover.
Yeah.
So I graduated 2010. Not a lot of jobs in Boston. There were some internships. My whole thing is I wanted to get into advertising, and then I moved to LA because I'm a big basketball fan, and the LA Clippers, they had a in-house marketing position and communications position.
Yeah.
So,
do you like all American sports? Basketball, American football. There's lots of stuff on your blog.
Yeah, I mean, I like that more. Baseball is probably my least favorite.
Oh yeah. What about baseball, IndyCar, and ice hockey?
Yeah, not so much IndyCar. Ice hockey is actually pretty fun to watch. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
I'm just not. I just don't follow religiously.
Okay.
But so I got a job with the LA Clippers, and so I was doing in-house marketing communications. So this would have been mid 2011-ish.
Okay.
And so that was my first proper job. And then I think I was less than 3 months into the job. I think it was about a month and a half, 2 months into the job, when the NBA players decided to go on strike.
Oh.
And so they were like, "Oh, you're not out of a job, but you don't get paid or start work again until the players come back from strike. So are you willing to wait?" And I said, "All right, that's a bad sign. I'm moving back to Hong Kong."
There you go.
And I mean, they were on strike till December that year, so that could have been like 5 months without any work. So I moved back to Hong Kong end of 2011.
Do you work for Geometry Global at the moment?
I worked for Geometry Global until Friday.
Oh my
So I
goodness.
start my new job on Monday. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Clapping.
Yeah.
So you're into marketing,
I do
branding,
advertising, branding.
advertising, yeah.
Yeah.
Creating campaigns on mobile, web, social media.
Yeah, okay. I say all those things to hide what I actually do.
Okay.
Because for the last, I'd say, 2 years and 9 months, I've been doing advertising and communications for British American Tobacco. So almost the devil's work, basically. Although I'll be out of my next job, still similar, still doing advertising campaigns, but will not involve.
This is what I wanted to get to. This is my point. Is it useful, all this knowledge, in being able to market yourself as a stand-up comedian? Because that's being an entrepreneur trying to get work. You don't have an agent in Hong Kong. There's no agent for stand-up comedians.
No. Yes, I think there are tips to branding yourself that are pretty easy. I've discovered for at least the corporate gigs in Hong Kong, I get a lot of them because I have a very nice business card and I have a very professional looking website.
I am Garron.
I am Garron.com. Yeah.
This will be in the notes. I am Garron, GARRON.com.
Yeah.
And you can find you on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
All of
I am Garron.
And it's a lot of it. This was so I did a lot of internships for magazines when I'd come back for summers in Hong Kong, and people don't really realize that journalists need content. Event companies, they need vendors. I think when you start off as an artist, you're so obsessed with I need these people to help me out, that you forget that they need you too.
Okay.
So you just have to make their job easier. So I have a very nice looking press release with some videos and a media kit that whenever anyone asks, "Oh, can I get your information?" blah blah blah, I send them a Dropbox link, and it has everything. It's my bios, my headshot. I've got a press release, a couple of videos, and some photos if they need.
So you have a little package that you can just email them straight away into Dropbox.
I think they appreciate that professionalism.
Yeah, and your website looks amazing. I just look at it.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I mean, it's
so
you just have to have things, and it's also these are things that are not that hard to do because I think when looking for, I'm just going to use the term vendors for now, but entertainers, any artist, because people are spending a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
They're always looking for reasons to say no.
Yeah.
And if I see a comedian who I thought was someone recommended, and I just Google them and I click, and the first thing they do is their website sucks.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ignore it.
Yeah.
Same for like YouTube. Like I don't put content for content's sake online. Only have good content. Like if you Google me, and I've done a lot of comedy in a lot of places, there are very few videos of me. And there are some people who put up every open mic video. I'm like, no, because if someone Googles your name, and that's the first video they find, and it wasn't a great video, they'll say no.
Yeah.
So I only have a few professional stuff, like any of the any interview or media I do. I try to put that on there because if people think, oh look, he was interviewed by HK Magazine, there's a video of it.
Yeah.
You know, they think you're bigger than you actually are. Because it's a little bit of like faking it till you make it.
I like that. Yeah. So less is more. Put up the good quality stuff. Don't just put every single thing online.
Yes. Because I don't, and even I will go up and try to.
I guess what you could do. This is what I do. I put everything online, but a lot of it I just put on for my own purposes on YouTube. And it's just a private video.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Private video, or they can only see it if they get the link directly.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a good idea, because if someone Googles Garron Chiu and they see you trying out your new material open mic on a bad night, they're not going to think, oh, we're going to hire him.
Yeah, because...
If they Google Garron Chiu and they see a really good video or links to various big shows you've done.
Because, and some people will be like, oh, what if I write open mic on it? I'm like, yeah, but say I'm you're an event company, you need to find a comedian or an MC for a corporate event.
Yeah.
They don't know what an open mic is. They don't know. They just think, oh, that's your regular stuff, or else why would you post it up there? Because it's like, I'll put it this way. A magician doesn't put videos of himself failing at his tricks or practicing online. Yeah, I mean, like, a juggler's not going to post, like, these are my juggling fail videos. So you wanna try to have your professional foot forward. Yeah,
and looking at some of the photos, the photo on the homepage of your website, is that when you were emceeing at some sort of fight contest?
Oh, that was so lucky. That was just a perfect amount of like lighting and
because it looks.
Well, they had a professional photographer, and they just got like me inside the ring, pointing at an audience member with like the ring lights behind me. So that was lucky. It was a fluke photo. That was one of the first. Corporate gigs I did actually.
What was it? Was it mixed martial arts or was it boxing?
No. So they had a private fight night. So they had I won't name the restaurant because I don't know if it was technically legal. But it's a very famous restaurant in Hong Kong. It's a very nice restaurant, and they booked the rooftop of this industrial complex, and they paid, and they had basically all these tables, a ring set up, a bar. Very fancy, like maybe $3,000, $4,000 a head dinner. A lot of it goes to charity, and they had. It was actually very funny. They had so for the entertainment, they had the fights. They had an undercard. So they did some white collar boxing undercard, but the main card they had proper bare knuckle boxers, and in between there was other entertainment. So the other entertainment was me, another comedian, and strippers with the wrinkles doing the strip shows. And actually, surprisingly, even though it was, there was not a single woman in the audience, but the men were not interested in the strippers. They were like, we're here to see fights, we're eating really good steak and drinking really fine wine. This is a very classy event, and the strippers cheapened the whole thing. And the fight wasn't that great because it ended very early due to an injury. And on the way back, the audience would tell me and the other comic, they're like, you guys were one of the best parts of the night. Brilliant. We're really happy about that.
How did you get this event? It was one of the first ones you got?
The other comic got it, but they wanted two comics, and he recommended
Brilliant.
It. It was Shawnee Bear, who's now doing.
Who's also sat on this chair. Oh no, I'm making you feel like you are the last one. You're not.
He was very good, and he graciously got me on the show. What was disappointing, though, if you found out afterwards, We got paid much less than the strippers did.
Oh.
We got paid so much less than the strippers.
Yeah.
But it was one of our early gigs. I think. See, that's another thing that comedians and a lot of artists in
pricing.
Hong Kong need to learn. Well, it's because when you're doing corporate gigs, like you forget that the corporate gigs, their budgets are way higher than the regular gigs you perform at. So like, if I'm doing 20 at a comedy club, and I get paid, I don't know, 500 Hong Kong dollars.
Yeah.
And someone asks me to do 20 minutes at a corporate gig, you're not supposed to ask for 500. You're supposed to ask for a lot more because, one, not only are their budgets higher, you're the entertainment. You make what they want to do possible. You make everyone have a good time. And in that light, don't think of yourself as a juggler, or don't think of yourself as a musician, or don't think of yourself as a comedian. You think of yourself as the entertainment.
Yeah.
And so you have to value yourself as much as every other entertainer.
Yeah.
Every entertainer there. And it's because the bar to get into, the music open mic or the comedy club, the bar's high. You have to be good enough to get on there. But the bar's not as high as getting a corporate show.
No. Yeah.
So when you're at that level, then you start asking. Because I didn't know this for a long time. Like for not a long time, but for like a good 3-4 months, I didn't realize I was just getting booked because I was way underpricing myself. And you think like compared to the club, I'm getting paid way more.
Yeah.
But compared to like other acts, like it wasn't until I realized I got paid like 4 times less than a guy who played the saxophone for 20 minutes.
Yes.
It's like okay.
And what I found, if you're getting booked by an entertainment company, a middleman, rather than direct from the client, if you start giving the entertainment company a cheap price, they'll try and keep that price year after year.
Yeah. Well, and not just that, because they group it, right? If you're the comedian who gives an extremely low price because you didn't realize how much you're supposed to be pricing, that event company is going to start going to the other comedians. This guy's only charging this low though, and I was like, well, that's his problem. He's being an idiot. I'm not being an idiot. Yeah, I get. I just remember a very famous, one of the big event companies came up to me and they gave me a job recommended by Vivek as well. And actually Vivek's been very good to me for he recommends me for a lot of corporate gigs now, mostly because a lot of corporates just can't afford Vivek anymore. So I'll some of them, like, sometimes he won't even take a finder's fee anymore. I'll just like buy him lunch or something, which is pretty nice. But he told me when I first got it, he's like, this is the least you're allowed to charge. I'm like, oh no, that's a lot of money. He's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's the least you're allowed to charge.
Even
if they say no, that's the least you can charge. Don't say like, I'll take less if you take me. Because he's like, because if you go low, then they're going to make all the other MCs and comedians
Is
go
it really
low.
handy for you being bilingual? Because I know this Vivek's bilingual, you're bilingual, so that means you can do a stand-up comedy show for Cantonese.
Yes. So for Vivek, I'm sure it helps a lot. For me, me being bilingual has been helpful and a detriment at the same time.
Okay.
Because I speak fluently.
Yeah.
Well, pretty fluently. My vocabulary is not insanely good. It's not super formal, and I can't read or write.
Right.
And a lot of people just, when I say I can't read or write, I'm serious. I mean, I can read a menu, but I can't read. And last minute, I was doing an event just 2 months ago, and I was supposed to MC and do comedy in English, and every now and then I can speak Chinese when introducing someone, or handing out awards, which is fine. And then last minute they said, we might need to do it half in Chinese, here's a script. And I was like, I can't read that.
Yes, so you're not,
and I was like, I told you up front.
Yeah, I can speak it, but I can't read it.
Yeah, although the best skill really is, it's not, I'm sure, I'm trying to get my Cantonese better so I can do the bilingual stuff.
Yeah.
But the skill is, can you MC? And people don't realize how difficult MCing is, and being able to react on the spot, and adding value, not just the guy who reads off cards.
Yeah.
And I think one of the advantages of MCing is because Hong Kong's had a history of getting models to MC things, or ex-celebrities to MC things, because it seems prestigious.
Yeah.
But they're not good at it. It's just a pretty girl in a very nice dress.
Yes, reading off a card.
Reading off a card. And when you can add value as an MC, especially if it's an event that's supposed to be fun. Like
so when you MC, are you basically
almost
doing the announcements that you're supposed to do, but you're also just basically doing crowd work?
A little bit of crowd work, do a lot of the energy. So I try to play as many games as possible if I'm MCing an event. Yeah, because games can gauge people's interests. Like if you're at a work function for 2 hours on a Friday night.
Yeah.
You don't want to watch comedy the whole time.
Yeah.
So you want to talk to your friends, blah, blah. But games can get people invested.
What kind of games do you play? Because when I was in Singapore in the 1990s, the MCs always played loads of stage games. They'd have people on stage doing silly things. They'd have, for some reason in Singapore, despite its uptight reputation, they get the CEO on stage. They make him put a wig on, have false breasts, and do silly dances.
I'll give you a CEO story in a second. It's my go-to trick now. I try to get a few things prepared, so I have it's a thing I saw on TV once. I played the Frozen T-shirt game, which is very fun. All you have to do is get a lot of cheap T-shirts, soak them in water, fold them, put them in the freezer for a day, and then keep them in an ice bucket. And I say, like, because there's always prizes to give out. And I say, our next game, we got these prizes. All you have to do is be the fastest to put on a T-shirt. Everyone's going, oh, I can do it. Everyone on stage is like, by the way, these T-shirts are frozen. Brilliant. So you see them trying to melt the T-shirts and trying to put them on. And I always try to get people to trash talk each other. A lot of people do, like, circuit games. Like, so they do weird relays. Like, one person has to light a candle, run it up to put it on a cupcake. The other guy has to eat the whole cupcake without blowing out the candle. You know, that kind of stuff.
And this is amazing. I had no idea you did this stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, mostly at corporates. Because if they're... One, it's because nobody... I mean, I can't do 90 minutes of comedy. It's like a 90-minute event with some breaks. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do 20 minutes of comedy, and the rest will be emceeing games. You're
playing party games.
Yes.
That adults are going to burst out laughing.
And second...
When they get involved in.
First of all, also the Newlywed Game is still the most fun game ever.
What is that?
You have a man and a woman back to back, and I usually try to get a lot of couples at the same time, so 3 or 4, or you can even get friends to do it, but it's most fun with couples. So they're back to back. They're holding whiteboards, a piece of paper, and a pen. I ask them a question. And they write down, turn over, and see if they're holding the same answer.
Right.
So and then I get more risque as I go, not risque, but like I try to go embarrassing. So I was like, all right. How many people has the woman in the relationship had sex with? And the woman will turn around with a big number, and the guy will turn around and says, I'm the only one who has
Where did you get all this game stuff from? Is this from debating? No, when did you
No, I just like, I watched, I shadowed Vivek doing an event. Vivek says, I'll do the emceeing and I'll do the games. And you do the comedy part. And his games are really interesting, and I thought, like, I know a lot of, like, these kind of games that you've seen on simple game shows or, like, a lot of Asian game shows, they play these kind of games. And so I just try to see which ones are the simplest ones that require you with the... I basically go as simple as possible. Like, what's the most fun game not to play, to watch? That takes the least amount of work for me and preparation. Because I mostly do... I host, I trash talk, and I do commentary. And I try to get them to trash talk each other. Because it's more fun when people are saying mean things about each other because they want prizes. And I remember the best thing I've ever done, and this was a fluke. I tried it once and it worked, and since then I do it almost every time. If a crowd's not that into it, so I was doing the Turner Christmas event. This is 2 Christmases ago, so end of 2015. And I just remember, I guess people were tired. It wasn't a great day, and the food wasn't that good, the drink wasn't that good. So when I got people to play the games, they weren't really into it. I'm like, oh, what do you... and they split their teams into channels. So it's like HBO versus Cartoon Network versus CNN. And I was like, what do you think of the CNN people? And they're like, I don't know. They're like, they're fine, they're friends. And they wouldn't say anything about each other. Until I saw the CEO who had come to Hong Kong. I think he's based in Singapore office. Came to Hong Kong just for this event. And he was hammered. And I walked up to him and I was like, do you think people here should be having fun? He's like, yeah, you guys should be having fun. I was like, I think they need an incentive to have fun. He's like, what do you mean an incentive? I was like, how about whoever wins the next game doesn't come to work on Monday? And they're like, and then the guy who was drunk was like, whoever wins the next game doesn't have to come to work till Thursday. And everyone's like, 5-day weekend! And then immediately start trash talking. And they're like,
brilliant.
Fuck you, HBO! I was like, oh, CNN, you guys don't do anything.
That's great.
Yeah, so I usually try to get, like, the additional prize. Because a lot of the times, like, I'm like, this is a company party and you guys are giving away Starbucks coupons. Nobody wants Starbucks
How do you deal with the technical stuff? Do you try and do it with just one handheld mic and give it to the volunteers on stage so they can be heard, or try to give them mics?
I usually leave that to the event company.
Yeah.
I prefer a wired mic if possible, because
Yeah.
the wireless mics always get trouble, and
Yeah.
I prefer multiple mics.
Yes.
And always a platform. That, when I was shadowing Vivek, was the biggest thing, because we remember.
You mean being on a stage?
Yes. No, I know, but anything, because he's just like.
If you're on the floor.
As long as you're higher than the audience, they will then think you have an air of authority.
Yes.
And listen to you.
There you go.
And it was simple things like we did the Asian Bankers Club, just a charity dinner. It was a very simple dinner. We were just doing comedy, and we got there, and Vivek's like, "Oh, there's no stage set up." And they're like, "Oh, well, it's a bar, it's close. There's no stage." And Vivek's like, "No, we need a stage." It's like, "Oh, we don't have anything." So he goes to the bar, and those plastic cartons where you put all the glass cups in. He just took 2 of them, put them side by side, and they're only, maybe 6 inches high. Put them side by side, put a carpet over them, and stood on it. And just him being 6 to 8 inches above the rest of the audience made a huge difference. And
Brilliant!
I was
I love that. That's fantastic.
And we were doing an event, actually the Sam Turner event. They didn't have a stage, and for the comedy portion, he's just like, "I'm going to stand on this chair." It's like, "What?" It's like, "Trust me, it's going to make a huge difference."
Yeah.
It's like, "Yeah, even if it's ever so slightly."
There you are.
You got to be higher than the audience, and especially for that gig, the Asian Bankers gig, because he's like, everyone's sitting on stools; they're not sitting on chairs. So if you stand up and they're sitting down, they're basically as high as you are, and that's not okay. You've got to be above them. So that was some very good advice that I've followed.
This might be a simple yes or no. Do you ever use music in your games?
No.
It's hard to control.
Hard to control. Yeah, and I just like. I very rarely have time to rehearse things with the AV guys.
Costume choices. Do you always try to look very, very smart on the stage when you do a corporate event in particular?
This I always leave up to them.
Okay. So you ask them to tell you.
If they want me in a suit, fine. If they want me in a tux, fine. And there are some events where they're like, no, wear shorts and a t-shirt. Be as relaxed as possible. So I try to err to them because I think. Especially or ask the event company, because at this point they're the client, and you don't want to show up in a tux and realize like the CEO's in a flannel t-shirt.
Yes. Okay.
So you always ask them.
Were there any turning points for you when you realised you could go from a hobby to you can start making money out of it? Were there any turning points?
I think turning points. I think there was just one Christmas where I got...
Because it was such a weird career.
It is a weird career. Especially because, like, you do the comedy more and you want to do the comedy more, but it's the... At this moment in Hong Kong, it's the corporate stuff that pays more.
Yeah.
So I think it was the last... I mean, I've been doing it a while, but last March, it was the first time I headlined a gig that wasn't in Hong Kong. So Malaysia, they flew me out, got a, decent hotel, not a great hotel, but they flew me out. They were even nice enough to fly my girlfriend out there.
Yeah.
Did 2 nights. The second night, I did just under 50 minutes, killed almost the whole way through, and that was a great time. And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome. We'll have you back." And all the bookers talk to each other. So immediately after that, after me just doing my first successful out of Hong Kong headline, I just had bookers calling me, and that's when I thought like, "Oh, this is maybe something I could do." So my goal this year was to headline a different non-Hong Kong club 12 times throughout the year. I've done 5. It's June, so I'm slightly behind pace.
Pretty good.
Slightly behind pace. But yeah, so I think that was one of the turning points. And the other was when I did the San Francisco comedy competition last year. I've been doing pretty well here. I've been on quite a roll. Last year I was doing a few headline spots, and I got to the U.S. Before I went to San Francisco, I had to visit my grandmother in Austin. I did a show there, and I had a really good set. Good set, and they let me headline. Short set, though, like 15 minutes or so. And I was better than a lot of the comics there, and I felt really, really good. And it's like, oh yeah, this competition thing's going to be easy. Go back to San Francisco the next day, and I'm like, holy shit, these people are so good. Like, so good. I was blown away. Like, I was good, but I was not even mediocre compared to the 16 people I was performing with.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a downer, because these people were also really nice. We talked to each other, we hung out. The San Francisco Comedy Competition is similar to the one in Hong Kong, except each round is 5 shows at 5 different clubs.
Wow.
So you really get to see people grow their set, change their set. It's different audience, different. Like we performed in front of rooms with 50 people, and we performed in front of rooms with 700. And you travel together for a whole week, and just being around that much creative energy. What an
experience!
Yeah, that was like I was more inspired than anything. I was like awed by like no, not awed. I was very humbled, and I got back and I just kept writing. I was like, all right, got to do this, got to push, got to make a plan.
Yeah.
Instead of just like I'll hit some open mics, and when I'm bored, I'll do some shows, and we'll see if I can travel at a corporate job. Like I've also been more active.
But you've got a full-time job. Well, you did until the end of this week, and now you get another full-time job.
My new one starts Monday. Yes.
So do you have to use all of your leave in order to do these overseas events?
I use most of my leave.
Yeah.
Yes. But so I'm hoping this happens in the next job. The one good thing about my last job, current job until Friday, is I get to travel a lot, especially throughout Asia. So I go to Japan a lot, Malaysia a lot, Singapore a lot. So I try to book my traveled shows to connect with my work thing. So and I also tell them like, don't pay for my flight. I got that covered. Give it to me in cash. You can even give it like how much is the flight? $1,400? Okay, just pay me $1,200.
Yeah.
And then it's win-win for both of us.
Yeah, that's good. What are the pros and cons of starting comedy in Asia, in Hong Kong in particular?
So the pros and cons, Hong Kong, you can get quality stage time very quickly.
Yeah.
And I mean, because there are open mics, and some open mics quality stage time, most open mics aren't quality stage time. You still have to do them. You still have to do them. But getting to do shows in front of a paying audience, a diverse audience, opening for pros, meeting people, that you don't get that quick, that early on in other places. Like Apollo Gata would always said, like, obviously the ceiling outside of Hong Kong is higher, but the floor is also higher too. He says like if you're good at it and you're focused, the first year in Hong Kong is like the first 2-3 years in a big city in the States, just because it's hard to get time.
You get so much stage time in Hong Kong. But then again, someone like Vivek, very successful, but he said this was about 2 years ago when I interviewed him, 50% of his income is from something related to being on stage and speaking. Yeah. And 50% is from his websites and his
I'm sure right now it's much more on the performing.
Oh, good.
Now that he's in billboards and things.
Excellent. Yeah. So, do you think that you can make enough? How do you see the market in Hong Kong? Because I don't think you can't really go full time in Hong Kong, can you?
It's really difficult. You can try full-time MC, and that's a really tough, really hard job because you are spending more time networking and trying to get business.
Yeah.
And that's kind of any performance art, trying to get corporate gigs is kind of the same.
Yeah.
And it's also, I'm sure you know this, it's very seasonal.
Yeah.
Like summers when kids are out, and Christmas when people throw Christmas parties is way bigger than any other time of the year.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's very unstable. Though it's possible. So Vivek's like, because at this point Vivek's like, if you work really hard, you get 2 to 3 MC gigs a month, and you're kind of set, and you do some stuff on the side for extra money.
Yeah. Have you ever thought of any ways of actually putting on your own show and inviting people to come and see you and make money that way?
Yes. We have put on one-off shows to make money. Unfortunately, there's not enough of an audience to make this sustainable. Like I could do one.
Yeah.
And make some money, but then it would mean I can't do one again for like a year.
Yeah, so I think one of the particular problem in Hong Kong is you get lots of stage time, but if you are trying to be a professional stand-up comedian, the audience pool is tiny.
Yeah. I think
especially if you go for English speaking, if you're an English speaking stand-up comedian, there's hardly any. Yeah. Percentage-wise, most people don't speak English well enough to go to stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I think one. This is the unfortunate thing. You probably have to be Cantonese.
Yeah.
You probably have to do it in Cantonese. In English, I mean, the travel's helping because more and more of the clubs are popping up, and they're decent pay. It's just not livable pay.
Yeah.
So
they'll pay for your airfare. They'll pay for your room and board, and give you
then
a
couple $1,000. Yeah. Maybe $2,000.
Yeah.
And if you're bigger, you'll get more, which is
fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, we actually. we look at that as free vacation.
Yeah.
So I think of it as, you know what? I'm going to go to Shanghai and I'm going to do some touristy things and eat some nice food. And in exchange, I have to do 2 comedy shows every 2 days and get some free drinks out of it.
You did organise your own roast.
I did organize my own roast. That roast made quite a bit of money too.
Brilliant.
Though it was my birthday and I split the roast with all the roasters, so that was fun. We ended up getting maybe $4,500 from my roast.
And you're doing Comedy Central, 13th and 14th of July?
Yeah.
Is that overseas?
Yes, so that's in Malaysia. Oh, so I got contacted by Rizal Kamal, who books LOL Livehouse, which is the 2 main clubs in Malaysia. We've got Crack House Comedy and Livehouse Comedy. And he's actually never seen me do comedy properly. I've been recommended by a lot of the Malaysian comics, like Jason Leong, Hanan. He's good friends with Shani Bear, who recommended me. So they do a Comedy Central show. This is the second time they've ever done it. Last year, basically, Comedy Central, they want to do a show called Stand Up Asia that takes some of the top comics from all over Asia. You film 2 days at the club, and then they'll turn it into an 8-episode show where there's backstage segments or some interviews, and they'll play your set. And then they do a 3rd day, which is a live show on Facebook Live, which you're allowed to go as blue as possible because that's not going to be on TV.
Yeah.
Except this year, it's not going to be at the club. It's going to be at a 2,000-seat theater, which will be the biggest by far the biggest venue.
Oh, great! Okay.
So that's really exciting.
So people listening, look out for that 13th and 14th of July.
No, 13th, 14th of July is the taping.
Taping, yes.
So I think it'll air sometime in August.
Yeah.
It won't air in Hong Kong, but it'll air on the Comedy Central Asia website. Because I think it's the main markets are Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia. And what they try to do is they try to get 2 comics from each country to represent. So last year representing Hong Kong was Vivek and Jim Brewski. Has he also been on this chair?
No.
Okay, there we go. There
you go. See, Jim's after you now.
So last year was Vivek and Jim Brewski, and this year will be me and another local comic, Ben Quinlan.
It's awesome. It's so cool.
And Tambi was, and I know Tambi's been on this chair. Tambi Chan was the 3rd choice, and he's been told if anyone backs out, he can join. So he was a little upset about it. But the thing is, for Japan and Korea, for example, the scenes aren't that great there. Japan's getting better. The scene's dying. So they don't have good enough comics to represent the countries for the show. So instead, representing Japan, they're flying out Paul Ogata. And representing Korea, they're flying over 2 Korean-American comedians. To which I told Tammy, like, you should have just told them you were Korean. They told me straight on the show. So 16 comics, I believe.
Yeah, hey, if you're listening, I'm Korean as well. Yeah, I'm definitely Korean.
I off the top of my head, I believe the countries are Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, India, Korea, Japan.
I'm most of those countries.
Yeah, you're most of those countries. But yeah, so that's going to be a lot of fun, and they. It's a big... Comedy Central, because it's Comedy Central, they're doing it properly. Flown out, nice hotel, Fantastic. 3 days of meals. They even said, like, we can organize transport from the airport. I'm like, ooh, that's fancy.
That's lovely.
Yeah, so
brilliant.
I'm kind of excited about that. And they said, like, they told me it was, the rooms are really big, so I was like, oh, so I can fly my girlfriend out. They're like, yeah. No, and they asked, like, oh, you wanted us to fly your girlfriend? I was like, no, I can do it myself. I'm not that much of a diva yet.
This might be a smaller gig. I don't know what it is. What is Uncensored Cabaret at the Honey?
Oh, Honey. Okay, so that, I'm surprised you don't. I'm sure you know the performers who've been there. There's a girl called Victoria Chan. She currently works at I forget. She works at a restaurant group. She used to work at Salon 10. She's noticed a few things. One, a lot of people in F&B industry, they want to perform, whether it's music or comedy, or poetry. They want to do some sort of open mics. But every open mic in Hong Kong is on a weekday, or all the shows are on Saturdays. And if you're in food and beverage, you only have Sunday nights off. So it's a cabaret show for them. And so they try to do half really amateur and half established acts, and it's cabaret. It's very LGBTQ friendly, so there's always some sort of drag element there.
Yeah.
And I've seen some very good drag
I probably know
acts
some
there.
of the drag artists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stuart Palm's there a lot as well, doing mentalism. They usually try to do mostly open mic comedy, so 5 minutes, and then 2 comedians get longer sets. So
Okay.
I've done the 15-minute set.
That's probably just for me. I was just curious what that was. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
No, I'm sure you can go in and juggle. Honey's a tiki bar on Wellington Street. So that shows every 2 Sunday nights. Yeah.
I always like to end with a few random questions. I call them the randoms.
Sure, go for it.
Is comedy in Asia still racist?
Is comedy in Asia still racist? Is this based on that article? I think it's getting a lot better.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, was it racist in the first place? Probably not.
I don't think comedy is racist. I think a lot of people are products of what certain organizers want or certain audiences want, and it's just comedy's new.
Yeah.
And when comedy is new, people want the things that are the easiest.
Yeah.
Which are a lot of things about race or sex or.
And it's
evolving.
Yeah, it's evolved. It was an immature stage,
Yes.
just beginning.
Yes.
As it matures, it becomes
And-
less about racial stereotypes.
And I also think there's a big delineation of there are jokes that are racist and there are jokes that are about race. Just because it's about race doesn't mean it's racist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Random question number 2: is the market in your area changing?
Well, I think it's a little worrisome in Hong Kong because there are a lot of shows popping up, which is good. And there are more avenues for people running their own shows. A lot of people have rented out the Fringe.
Yeah.
Nick Milne's another comedian here. He's done a lot of outlying island shows. I've done a few, so he's doing shows in Lama or Blue Wall or Discovery Bay that have been pretty successful. And there are a lot of new bar shows popping up. The only problem is I think there's a talent drought because we've had a lot of people in Hong Kong leave.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had none of your listeners. Just trust me. I assume these people are good, but just in the past 2.5 years alone, we've had Alex Milner, Adam Wall, Shawnee Bear, Anto Ming Chan, Gus Tate.
Yeah.
A lot of really good, even guys like Arun, like the solid people in the middle. Andrew Newman's left.
Yeah.
Enough of those people have left, and there have not been enough new comics who've gotten good enough to fill those voids.
Yeah.
The good thing is there are people like myself and Tammy Chan and Ryan Hynek and Mahesh. We're getting better so that we can fill up more time.
Yeah.
But you'd still like to see that variety. Because I think I think we got lucky that we all pushed each other, but guys like me and Shawnee Bear and to an extent Jim Brewski, Andrew Newman, Tammy, we all started within like a 7-8 month span of each other.
So you were firing off each other, inspiring
Alan
each other.
Harford as well.
Yes.
And then I guess you don't often get that many people start comedy.
It's magic moment.
And do it a lot.
Magic time.
Yeah, I think it was just timing. And lately, I mean, we've had Howard Ho and Mike Harrington, some of these younger guys who've been good enough. Andrew Grant been good enough to fill a good amount of time, and there are some nights they really kill as well.
Yeah.
But it's just it hasn't been enough to fill that talent.
But
yet.
surely, if you're trying to get the corporate work, it's better for you if there's less.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Oh, I thought you were talking about comedy, the scene in general. No, for myself, it's only gotten better. It's,
Random question number 3: anybody else in your family at all on stage? Are you the only one?
No. Every woman in my family has been, but by the family, I mean my cousins, so my generation, has been a professional dancer at one time or another.
Wow.
I actually used to teach at the Once to Watch Dance Studio in Chim Sa Choi when I was
Oh.
way younger. But now it's only my cousin Valerie, so she works at the dance studio, but she also does anytime the famous Chinese artists or international artists come to Hong Kong and need choreographed backup dancers.
Yes.
Yeah, she does a lot of backup dancing.
There you go. You've got performers in your family.
Yes.
No wonder you do what you do.
And then my grandma, which is weird. Maybe it skips a generation because the generation above me, nothing. And people weren't even musical. They didn't even play instruments. But my grandma on my mom's side, she was a very famous Chinese opera singer.
Fantastic. If they get out the name, we'll Google it later. If you
no, keep them fun. You're never gonna get that.
Okay.
It's okay.
You can email me how
Sure.
to write it. Random question number 4. Looking back, any tips you would give someone starting out? Any mistakes that you made that you wouldn't want anyone else to make?
Yeah. Start as soon as you can.
Yeah.
I think like a lot of people that prepare is like, oh man, you gotta work. The first set is so important. Like comedy, especially, like your first set is a big deal. It also doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter. The only part is taking the first step, getting comfortable on stage, and getting comfortable as fast as possible. And you can only do that by practicing your craft as much as possible, by getting on stage as much as possible. Like I'm very of the learn by doing mind. Like a lot of people can talk about comedy and write comedy and prepare for comedy at home, but nothing helps you more than just being on stage. So whatever craft you want to practice or you want to perform, just perform as much as possible and start as early as possible.
Garron
And that's
Chiu.
Good.
Brilliant. Fantastic
Right.
talking to you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much.
Good stuff.